So before we get going, let's introduce our presenters. Today we'll be hearing from Jens Plötz and Gautam Gyada, both from DNV, and of course myself as the host. Finally, let's take a quick look at today's agenda. We'll have our introduction, a breakdown of the questions that are part of the CIC campaign. Then we'll have a look at some of the other PSC topics. And finally, we'll have our question and answer session. So without any further delay, let's get on to our first presentation, and I hand over to you, Jens.
Yeah, thank you, Simon. Thank you for having me over. Hello to everybody. Good afternoon from Hamburg. Now we come to the introduction, because it's we had some general about PSC, what it is now. Just to see, again, COVID-19, nothing new, everything is done, everything is over. But what we see on this slide is, we take China as example, because it's a very good example, very sophisticated policy control. And it's nearly the same situation in all MoUs over COVID-19, and it's just now. It says PSC high new normal. What is normal? Are detentions normal? No, it's the inspections. The regime is back to normal. It is according to the ship target factor, and the inspections will run usually as they do always. But what we develop is that when you have a deep look into it, that if you see it here at the beginning of before COVID, so the ratio was, the numbers were around 1,000 and detentions around 30. And if we go now, it's more than less, more inspections. And what is really annoying is that it's more detention. So if the distance between this detention line and the inspection number is small, it says this is the high detention ratio. And we have to ask ourselves why we have now more ships detained after inspections than before. Because we are after COVID, everything is running fine, shipyards are available, supply chains are there. Because this must mean Port Said is better prepared. They took the time of COVID when we had less inspections, obviously to be better prepared for PSC inspections than we are. So what to do to come back to a better number? Look at the top detainable deficiencies. Well, this is still not MLC. The MLC deficiencies are not in the top detainable list. This is all technical items. And above the technical items, it is like umbrella is the ISM. It is the connection to management systems, the MC and ISPS, and the technical ones. So with ISM as the main, with the majority of top detainable deficiencies, we have this relation to operational issues, to crew issues, because we see that most of the technical defects are now caused by operational failures. About, for example, emergency generator. Crew was not able to connect to an emergency generator to switchboard. Or you have the oily water separator, not able to explain how it operates, as an example. So you see, it's more and more crew-related issues. And this brings us to this CIC, because Port Said realized that crew and seafarers are the core, the main part to run the vessel. It's they have to be satisfied and have to be trained to get ships in a better status. So we come now to this PSC checklist. You will have probably seen before already 10 questions. The 10's divided in 2 parts, which are nearly the same. It is it will be available for valid for the next 3 months. That means during regular port set inspections, this list might be used by port set control officers. It is used in nearly all MoUs, except Coast Guard and Riyadh, and we don't know about Caribbean now if it's really used. But please take into account this list is publicly available. So that means every PSCO from everywhere can use this checklist and check maybe 1 or 2 items if he wants, because it's free. So we have it on our webpage, of course, if you like, and we already issued 2 technical newsletters with more detailed information if you need it. Most important is to mention that this PSC inspection is not limited to the CIC. The port sitter can look at any part of the ship he wants. He can ask for a drill, or he can check the emergency generator, the main engine, whatever he wants, it's his fault. This is just an addition. And even you don't have to use all 10 questions. If you only want 2 or 3 and then he's satisfied, finished. So you cannot say every inspection now will have 2 hours for the CIC and then the rest will never. It is upon the professional knowledge from the port control officer. And some hint for our customers and users of the PSC Planner, which is our main tool for preparation for port sec control and can be used by every customer who has a ship with DNV. And it is included in fleet status. There will be a link to a guide how to use it in detail. So you have this checklist, this ship specific for the next port for the ship, and then you have a port specific checklist for the next port and our top 18 as shown in 2 slides ago. And in addition, at the end of the month, you will get the CIC checklist for the vessel. And you can have an automatic email notification for every port, or when you arrive to a new region, then you get an email with these checklists if you want, how you select it, whatever, for the ship to use it. So you see this will be updated just for our customers. It's not available public. So now we come to first poll, just to have a snapshot about your knowledge and to see how much you know. So Timon, please run the poll.
So now we'd like to hear a little from you about your preparations for the CIC 2024. So if you can make your selection from the poll answers here, selecting yes, our ships have checked all the documents according to the checklist. Partially, they've read the checklist and will inform the ships shortly. No, we have no complaints from our crews regarding the work environment. No, we have good processes to manage new crew documentation, or this is not relevant for your question, for your organization or for you personally. So if we can get you to offer us your insights onto how you've prepared for the CIC 2024 already, that will be fantastic. And then we'll have a quick look once we've got the results in. So now we've got the poll results in. And Jens, once again, I think we've got very good insights here and positive trends with almost half having already checked their documentation and another third having at least done some kind of prep for the CIC. What do you take from these results?
So many thanks to you for the results. Well, it's as expected. We are already, most of you are already prepared for the CIC, which is more related, office related now than the other ones. They're not only ship, you have to make the documents clear. So it's good that half of you are really well prepared. and just hear some details during the session. Minimum a third have partly, it's still time to go, it's okay. And I'm happy to have this 60% customers with us, which are not prepared, which don't know anything about it. Just we hope we can give you some new insights during the session. And with this, I will hand over to the next slide, which is now the CIC, the core part of this presentation, to my colleague Kjetil.
Thank you, Jens, and good afternoon to everyone. I will now guide you through the question which is part of the coming campaign. The purpose is to give you some heads up related to the questions, partly repeat some requirement which can be useful for you to know, also share some experience. Before we actually start with these questions, we would like just to show you. Let me see. I need to, Jens. You need to. Yeah, thank you very much. Just to show you typical findings from DNV MLC audits in 2023. And these are findings related to the employment agreement and also to wages, as well as financial security. The last one, we didn't have actually any findings in 2023, so that looks like most of you have good control over that part. As you can see, for the employment agreement, the dark blue, approximately 75% of the findings was related to that one. You can also have a little bit of attention to recruitment and placement services. It's also related to employment agreement. So the green and the blue one is approximately 80% of the findings, and the rest of them is related to wages. Reason for this is probably that there are much more detailed requirements, and there's more options to go wrong on the employment agreement than on the wages. So that's suppose that's the reason. But also, if we compare the employment agreement with and findings of this with all the other 16 requirements, which is part of certification employment agreement, is still the one who is had the majority of findings. At the left-hand side, you can see some keywords of the findings. We will repeat them, some of them at least, when we go through these different slides now. So Jens, you need to change the next slide. One back, please. Before we start to go to the first question, just that you explain how this slide is constructed. In the top, we have just copy-pasted the question from the checklist. And then we have made some check items. We believe that if you as a ship owner has control over these items, that will strongly ensure that you are in compliance and be able to provide evidence that you are in compliance with different requirements. Then we go to the first question. Is the seafarer given a seaman employment agreement signed by both the seafarer and the ship owner or a representative of the ship owner? And then it's very important to notice that the MLC code requires that each seafarer shall have signed original. It's not required to have this on board. So this is something the seafarer needs to confirm to the posting control officer being asked. And if you have an agreement, there's always two parties who should sign it. Seafarer is one of them. The other one is the ship owner or a representative of the ship owner. Very often we receive a question related to what is an original employment agreement. And in practical terms, that's meaning that you have one document signed by both the parties. But in fact, for last year, it's more than normal to have scanned and printed employment agreement sent to the seafarer, which also make their own signature on it. So it's less common today regarding having original than it was in the beginning. So hopefully that will be also be the case now. But the requirement is rather clear that the seafarer shall have an original. So it's not an option. Digital signature, IMO has not issued any instructions so far accepting that. Some flag has making reference to an IMO resolution from 2016 regarding having electronic signature on certificates. It's rather complicated to comply with that one, but still there's an option. So, but we still believe that as long as you are able to read the signature, both parties is still committed, and there shouldn't be any dispute, and you only have this copy, scan printed one, still that will be, both parties will have commitment to the conditions and terms in the agreement. Also, it's very important, if the ship owner has authorized someone else, some other entity to sign this, normally we should expect this as some kind of agreement between the ship owner and the entity who is signing it. This agreement is not required to have on board, but we strongly recommend it so that the master, if being challenged, can show evidence that the entity who signed it actually have such authority from the ship owner. And the last one here is important, and it's very generic because MLC code require that all companies shall have measures ensuring ongoing compliance, meaning that you have to have a procedure or a description in DMC Part 2 describing who is actually doing what in order to ensure compliance. So it's very important that you pay extra attention to the last one. Because it will be three different ways of seeking evidence of compliance here for the postal control officer: asking for documents, asking questions, interview with the seafarer, or verify that you have the procedure for showing ongoing compliance. Some of the question will all these three be relevant. For some of the question, maybe only one of them will be sufficient in order to provide necessary evidence. Next slide, please. Question number 2, is the seafarer able to access information regarding their employment conditions on board? Please notice the reference which we have made to MLC code here, which is clearly stating that it's only required to have a copy of the employment agreement. We know that there are cases where the post-date regime has required to have originals on board, but in this MLC regulation, it's clearly stated that a copy shall on board. That should be also sufficient if a post representative from the post state is on board to verify that the employment agreement is in place. Of course, also the seafarer need to have this available. Question of be raised in the cases where the master need to collect the employment agreement from the seafarers, because they normally bring what we call original with them. And we can obviously see that very often the signature from the employer is the copy-paste one. So we definitely recommend that the captain is actually having a copy of all these and present them if being challenged by the postal control. If the seafarers are being challenged regarding the collective agreement, they need to be able to identify them on board. So please ensure that they are available, and either in hard copy or in electronic in the safety management system. But they need to have access to them, and also expect that they have some kind of knowledge related to the content of these collective agreements. And at the last, and also important, when the seafarer is terminating their contracts, you are unasked required to make a record of employment. Stating the name of the seafarer, how long they've been aboard, which position. And this shall be unasked. It should not be needed for the seafarer to ask for this. You shall provide it. The only exception is in cases where the seafarer has a seaman's book or a seafarer's discharge book. That is sufficient. In all other cases, you as a ship owner shall unasked provide the seafarer with a record of employment. Next slide, please. Question number 3, are standard forms of employment agreement and collective agreement in English available in English on board? And both the standard form you are using shall be in English or translated into English. Very important as well, that if you have any free text in the employment agreement shall also be a translation into English. If you have any enclosure part of the employment agreement, shall also be in English and also be signed by the seafarer as well. The same will be for the collective agreement, shall be also in English on board. Sometimes we find that the free text is written in the national language of the seafarer, and where the company is addressed in the same country as the seafarer is living in. It could be Spanish or Norwegian. But please verify that there's always a translation into English, and also follow up with any agent, any crew agents have issued any documents, an employment agreement or a CBA, that also this is provided on board in English. Next slide, Jens. Question number 4. Does the employment agreement include all the required elements specified in the MLC 2006? And there's a long list. You can hardly read it, but on the right-hand side of the presentation here, there is a long list of what shall be included in the employment agreement. Or it's not required to have all in the agreement. If you have a CBA, that's also possible to cover some of the requirement in the collective agreement as well. I know that some of you do not have collective agreement. Then I ask you to pay particular attention to how you comply with terms of termination, social security, repatriation, and annual paid leave. Very often we see companies with old CBA have limited to no description about these important topics. So please verify actually you have them, and also have a look into the MLC Part 1 and look where the flag state has covered this, because normally they have also instructions in the flag requirements which have particular requirements around these important topics. And at the bottom, you need also to verify that on the employment agreement, the ship owner name and address is the same as written in the MLC certificate or in the MLC Part 2. Normally the dock holder. I know that some of you have a quite complicated structure because these crewing services is subcontracted, which may be subcontracted again. You also have separate entities who's paying the salary, and sometimes you try in the employment agreement to make an overview of this structure of the company. Please be very clear for who is the ship owner of this company, in order to not make any confusion about. Next slide, please. Then we have question number 5. Do the particulars included in the Seafarer's employment agreement comply with MLC 2006? So this is more to verify that what you have agreed has been implemented also on board. We have listed some examples, and this is just examples. We could add more, or could have other one here, but this is just to give you pictures of what potentially could be asked for on board. Wages, we come back to that in the next slide. Pay leave, verify that the annual pay leave which you have been included in the employment agreement and in the CBA actually is paid out, or how this is implemented for the seafarers. Termination criteria. I know that most of you has time limited agreements. Please be aware that the MLC code is then required that you should have a date fixed for expiry. We all know that in the COVID period there was an acceptance for flexibility regarding this. You had maybe a contract for 4 months, and you have a possibility to have add 2 months if you like. I was just on board a vessel. The seafarers on board has 3 months contracts, but the company has also added that it could extend it with 2 months. This vessel has quite predictable trading, meaning that there was in ports many times each week, several times. The ports were easy, available for traveling to, from. So I challenged the company because of this requirement, MLC code regarding the fixed date, and they didn't come back with any justified reason, and they chose for that then remove this 2 months flexibility which you had included. I'm not saying that it's not allowed to have such flexibility. I'm just saying that if you have, you need to have justified reason for it. And it's very important that the captain is able to present this justified reason for the posted control if being challenged. And also this flexibility must be reasonable, and also reasonable for the seafarers. That's important. For health and social security benefits, typical questions will be if they have shore leave when you are in port, if go to a doctor if needed, have the opportunity to go to a dentist if practically possible. Repatriation, if the seafarer has been on board before, actually they have been repatriated before the expiry date of the employment agreement. The CBA, as you all know, quite extensive. There's a lot of questions which can be asked there, so we don't go into any details regarding this one. You're also required to include any national requirement into your employment agreement if the flag has something, and also the posted control officer is free to verify that these are implemented. Next slide, please. Then we are finished with the question related to employment agreement. Now we have 4 questions related to salary payments. We have chosen, even though the seeking evidence is more or less the same for these 4 questions, but we have chosen to make 4 different slides. We go quickly through this as well, all 4. Question number 6, are wage or salary payments made to the seafarer at no greater than monthly intervals? So this is just to check that every month they receive the salary as agreed. So this is something that the seafarer needs to also confirm from the bank account that actually have received the amount of money. We are not talking about any original pay slips here. This can be on an email, this can be on hard copy. So I think it's a different option here, or how you present it to the officer. But it's not any original to this one. So this can be sending by an email, or you can have copies or whatsoever. The whole thing, as I mentioned, the seafarer need to be able to confirm payments and that they have actually received the payment in the bank accounts. There are situations on board where the whole crew has been aboard for just a limited period, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. There's not any monthly account, there's not any payment carried out, and then the only way you can present evidence for being in compliance is to can show them the MLC Part 2 and/or the procedure in SMS, providing evidence of having ongoing compliance with this measure. Who is doing what in order to issue pay slip or pay this amount to the seafarer each month. So here you can see 3 different ways of verifying how in compliance with this requirement. Next slide, please. One back. Thank you. Question number 7, have seafarers been given a status of account and wages paid on at least a monthly basis? And again, the evidence for this is the pay slip and also the confirmation that the seafarer has received this payment. Also, the pay slip need to include what has been agreed, basic wage, where the overtime, for example, is not included, overtime paid. So if you have a consolidated wage where everything is included, but it's very important that again the pay slip shall show what you have been paid, and also deductions, if any. And again, the seafarer has to have awareness about the knowledge about these payments. So, yeah. And also very important to mention, if the seafarer has a right to require cash payments. So if something is have been paid cash, there should also be a record for that on board to provide evidence for what they've been paid. So that's also important. The same will be for if you have any overtime for any of the seafarers, there shall be documented record on board showing this overtime. Next slide, please. Are wage or salary payments in accordance with any applicable CBA and employment agreement? So this is just for the posting officer to sit down, look at the pay slip and see what's have been paid. And also can challenge the seafarer the same to see that they have been paid what they actually have been agreed upon. So, so this all should be straightforward, and also regarding the cash payment as well. It's important that you have an overview, if any. Next slide, please. Question number 9. If the payments made to a seafarer include deduction, are they in accordance to MLC 2006? First, the charges of bank transfer are reasonable. There's not any exact answer what's the meaning of that one. And I think if the seafarer is not agree, or this the amount is too high or something, it's the ship owner who has to come up with justified reason for it. And the amount of money they have been deducted or taken for such a transfer. So again, if being challenged, the master or the company need to come up with that's just a reason for having this. Also, when you verify the pay slip, you need to see that there's not any unauthorized deduction. That could be travel to from the vessel, or it could be food or something else, which could be actual. The different flags that also have instruction what is accepted and what is not accepted. So that also one thing you have to need to look into. Then we go to next slide, please. For the financial security, there's 2 questions in the checklist. We have merged the two to one since this is so related. There's 2 different documents normally, but still. And as you see in my first slide, this in 2023 there was actually no findings related to this. So I hope that this is a good control among the owners. But anyhow, you have to verify that they are valid. Normally, they have expired date, normally for 1 year. They need to be posted on board, need to be available for the seafarer. The seafarer should have awareness about them and also why they have them on board. For those of you remember in 2007, when this came into force, there was some detention related to these documents. The reason was that the legal ship owner was figuring on the insurance certificate and not the dock holder. In the new amendments to the MLC code into force December this year, this will be clarified and clearly stated that the legal owner is accepted to be part of this document. Next slide, please. Then we shall just sum up what we have been talking about. Ensure that all seafarers have a signed and valid employment agreement in original. I have not mentioned it, but please also pay attention for those of you which have position on board which is not clear if they're seafarers or not. Please have a look into that if there are if a medic, or if also if you have a client who have employment of the catering, whole part of catering crew. If you have any crane operators which you adopt, please consult the flag, or maybe if there's any clearance there, if there are seafarers or not. And please be reminded, it's not what they're responsible for which define them, it's actually what they are doing. Ensure that the employment agreement is signed by and acting on behalf of the ship owner. As I mentioned before, if the ship owner chooses to subcontract anything, there should be an agreement between that, and we suggest that agreement is available for the master in order to provide evidence for it. Any collective agreement must be valid, written in English, be on board, and be available for the seafarer. Also, that the employment agreement, the collective agreement, is including all requirement in obviously long list in standard I-214-A-K. Also, the seafarers are paid at least monthly. They receive a pay slip. And also that what they've been agreed is what they're paid according to, for instance, a wage scale. That's normally part of a collective agreement. It could also be that this payment is just agreed in the employment agreement. So there's a different option of verifying this. Next slide, please. Always remember that you as a ship owner, dock holder, is responsible for the service provided from the crew agents. So be ensure that you verify and follow up anything from them in order to verify that they are in compliance with the different requirements. That's your responsibility. Any findings related to the crew agents is given as a normal, it's a non-conformity related to the ship owner / the dock holder. And as I mentioned in the previous slide, ensure the documentary evidence showing that the accruing agent is authorized to sign the employment agreement. Again, it's not required to have it on board, but we strongly recommend it. Then we have the financial security and the documents, only 2 of them. They are valid and posted and available also for the seafarers. And then housekeeping. Good housekeeping is a good reason for not asking questions. So please ensure that your vessels are clean and tidy. That's a good rule. Next slide, please. If you are in compliance with the MLC code, that is normally a strong indication that you have an effective safety management system. Should you receive any findings related to the coming campaign, please ensure that you take some lesson learned from these findings. MLC Code 9 is requiring you to have a root cause analysis and identify measure to prevent recurrence. So use that tool to learn and make your system even more robust. Worst scenarios, you can experience that there is a detention, worst case. And if anything is unclear after this webinar, or if you have any question, please contact local DNV office or local DNV auditor, maybe one of us, to have a discussion if anything, you have any concerns, any question, remaining question after this. So we will support you. That was an invitation. Then Jens, I give the word back to you.
So Kjetil, many thanks to guiding us through the CIC question. And of course, now I would like to come back, because this is not all the CIC, as said before. This is just part of a regular inspection. In order to remind you on some other issues, I will start, you see, with Riyadh MoUs. They make their own CIC. They will not take part. They have issued, they will do it on lifting appliances. A lot of document checks, maintenance. It's also 10 questions available on our webpage. You can download it just to check. It's quite yes or no questions where you should look. If you have a good follow-up, then it should be no problem to go through this campaign. One more very difficult is testing of emergency generator. The emergency generator findings are for decades on the top list of the detainable deficiencies. So many issues with the testing of emergency generator, so many failures, and that's why Tokyo decided to issue a safety bulletin and to instruct portside control officers to have more look on the testing of emergency power supply. That means that the routine switch, which is provided, the switch or the test switch, is not enough. It's not sufficient. You have to make a real controlled blackout test. We will be asked to open up the switchboard and take out a tie bus bar. For this reason, DNV has already issued a technical newsletter, number 11 this year, with some guidance how to avoid blackouts, but even with detailed guidance what to test and how to instruct crews and that you are able to perform a test. One major issue we found is that it's not the test of the blackout, but the problems which occurred during restoring of power, when the power should be restored to original. And there were missing procedures, missing training. So please ensure that your crew is trained. Have a look on this technical newsletter. This is one reason, for example, why the deficiency ratio is still so high, because there are a lot of findings on our top 18 deficiencies, and emergency generator is one of them. Machinery failure. Machinery failure. After you might remember the collapse of the Francis Scott Key Bridge in Baltimore, US, in March, and there was an and even an accident in Guangdong in China in February with the loss of 5 lives. And that's why port control all over the world is now really checking for machinery failures. This is already mentioned in our technical news, which was already mentioned. So you see, this is still ongoing. China has a new targeting system, for example, that ships that were detained twice within the last 12 months, no matter where in the world, will be inspected at every port in China. Or if machinery failures are not reported to port control, if you do not report your machinery failures during port approach, you will be penalized by more frequent inspections, and this will be in other areas as well the same. Then we have the United States Coast Guard. They are always they introduced the EEP, the Enhanced Examination Program. That means they check on a certain topic for 3 months. So you have 4 detailed topics within the year where they check. The last one was on machinery fire safety, and this was publicly available by accident, so they keep it internal. They will not tell us what is this campaign. Same as with other focused inspection campaign by Paris and MoU, for example, that they have a focus item also for 3 months, which is kept internal, and that and this is usually one of the top technical findings. So if you really concentrate on these special findings, then you can avoid a lot of problems during port control. This is what we can do for you, how we can assist you. Please check our DNV website on port control. We have a dedicated port control website where you can find recordings from old webinars, these checklists. In short time, this presentation will be available, but even for training issues, the last ones, and from fire safety or whatever, you can find there. Then we have the PSC planner, as already said before. This is our core program for preparing port control inspection, with detailed checklists, with benchmarking, with all the deficiencies which were recorded within the last 3 years on ships of your company. You can create an own fleet to have to increase awareness, and several others. You will get the guidance how to work with DNV, the PSC planner. There will be a link in the material that will be sent to you. And even there's a link on our website. Then we have this as technical newsletters. Whenever we get aware about a special port control finding, about a new inspection focus, we will issue a technical newsletter. Last but not least, we have our academy for training purposes, which really can make tailor-made seminars, which can react on your needs and give you some training on port control. We have an onboard training if you want, if you need. What is now new is that we have online trainings. We have one online training for crews and superintendents, which takes about 4 hours, which is self-education. It was developed with a customer. It's a very good customer, so it is really a practical seminar. Then we are currently issuing a new 2 new online trainings, which is one is in the top 18, will be available in some days, and of course the other one on the MLC, which is based on the presentation today, which is a very short online, just online training, will be available at the end of the next week, for sure. Then you can check out the trainings on DNV Academy page, where you can get further assistance. So this is when I want to close down the presentation, and we come to the question and answers, and the floor is open. And I hope everybody can attend. So Simon, I give you the floor again.
Thank you so much, Jens. I just remind everybody that you can still type into your questions as we're going. We have quite a few questions already, which is fantastic, but if you've got any more, please pop them in. I think maybe we'll start off with one where we had a morning session as well, and this was a question that popped up quite a lot around the reference to the ship owner in the document, both in terms of who the ship owner is it sufficient that it is the ship owner in the documents to have the signature, and in terms of whether we need a real document or digital signatures are acceptable. So when there is a reference made to the ship owner, do we need the actual registered owner or the manager who assumes the role of the owner? In other words, an MLC owner or owner in terms of the MLC.
I'll answer that one. Normally, the ship owner is the dock holder. So that's in most cases, it's the dock holder who is the party who's going to sign or figure in the contract first, but also to sign the contract. And also is the one who's going to authorize if there is any entity signing on behalf of the ship owner / the dock holder. In these terms, the ship owner is normally the dock holder.
So I think we have a lot of variations on those questions. If the ISM manager can sign the SEA, and if so, under what conditions, and must the original be on board?
No, to take the last first, the original of the employment agreement is not required to be on board. That also clearly stated in an MLC code is sufficient that you have a copy. And in the presentation, the reference to the MLC code where this is stated is also given. So I strongly recommend all the companies here to verify this one and actually inform the captain of, so he can answer this to the employment United Posting Group officer if being challenged on this one. But the ISM manager is, yes, the same as the dock holder. So when we are talking about the ship owner in this respect, it's 99.9% is the dock holder of the company.
So let's go back to here. In terms of health and security benefits, what kind of documentation, what kind of evidence is needed to be provided?
You should have this insurance. Okay, there's one option, or two options. Is you go to this company is providing insurance for the vessel. They have standard insurance for these types of insurance. So I think this company is straightforward if they've been caught. The same as they will issue this document, providing evidence that you are in conformity with this financial security for this one.
Let's have a look here. Must the deductions in any kind of payment transfers be clearly defined, as well as the method of payment in the SEA?
I didn't catch the last one. If the deduction is part of the normal deduction is part of the payslip, need to verify actually what have been deducted. So unless it's not possible to see what have been agreed, because we need to ensure that what have been agreed for salary is what you're being paid, and if the ship owners have made any deduction from the payment, that need to be documented. So you have to see where this money has been gone. So
yeah, I think that answers the spirit of the question. Here's one in terms of seafarer benefits on the internet. Will reasonable charges for the internet, could this pose a problem in terms of the CIC questionnaire or inspection?
I can answer that at least try. The requirement for internet access provided to seafarers enters into force 23rd of December this year. That was the last amendment to the convention made in ILO. So this is not in force yet, but it will be. And when it comes into force, it is acceptable that seafarers are charged a nominal fee for the use of internet access. It should be at a reasonable cost.
I guess that needs to be defined as it comes up in practice. Let's have a look here. Is it allowed for a crew to sign new contracts while on board? And what is then happening if the total on-board time exceeds 12 months? I think we had some questions also around this, around contract length and how this would be dealt with.
yes, it's accepted that the crew can sign new contracts on board. If they extend the one they have, if there are any new condition terms, still have the option to have seek advice if they would like, but this is an option to actually extend the contract. But you can also extend it more than normally 11 months. Again, it's the flag who is very often deciding how long you have allowed to stay on board, but 11 months is normally the longest period.
Let's have a look. We had some questions around the PSC planner. Where can we find it on the Veracity platform, and where we might find deficiency data as relates to ports. Also how to, I guess, get those notifications.
I can answer that question regarding PSC planner.
Super.
It can be found in the fleet status in Veracity under the vessel services. There's the port state control, and in the same fleet status, the settings for the subscription can also be adjusted. Regarding the data, it is under constant improvement, but for special questions and certain questions, we would like to ask you to contact our date service, where we can answer in great detail.
So here's a sort of interesting speculative question, but also maybe something that gives some guidance to the people watching. So of the questions being asked by this in the CIC campaign, where do we see the highest number of detentions that are being associated with these during PSC inspections? I'm not sure if he's referring to older ones there or the upcoming ones, and in that case, perhaps it's a good idea to look at, maybe speculate where we think most detention could be paid or most profitably for our customers.
Well, I could take it. I would say we don't know which one is the most. It is up to the port state to ask it. But as from the past experience, I would say that it will be to the payment. We have a lot of payment issues, and we have a lot of where seafarers, they claimed that they didn't get the money, that it was not paid monthly. there were no pay slips available. But it's at the end it was solved, the question. The bank account, it was 2 days late, or it was left somewhere at home. I guess the payment issue is the biggest problem.
Mm-hmm. Do we know if guidelines for PSCO on this CIC will be issued, as was done last year for the fire safety CIC? Are these guidances already available, or is there anything that our customers could check before that's been issued by the MoUs?
No, yeah, of course, there is a very detailed guidance for port setters. They are trained beginning of June already, what they have to see, what they have to ask, but these are strictly internal. I know that there were some guidelines published last year by different flag states, but this is not from the MoUs itself, because you see the flag states are always, not always, but most of the flag states are at the same time the port state controllers. So if they want to issue some guidance to their customers, they publish these guidelines or part of it. So it will not be published by the MoUs. They publish only the questionnaire. It's up to the port state controller what he asks, what he wants to see. There are so many guidelines, some of the best practices, guidelines to owners, whatever, and you will understand. We say this webinar together with the Q&A, which will be posted on our webpage, is also very good, if not the best one.
Let's have a look. We have a question here around cash in advance amounts requested by seafarers. If there is an amount that should be agreed upon, or how that might work. Is this a common question?
I mean, the seafarer can ask, he has the obligation to ask for cash payment. Normally what we see is that the salary goes to his bank account. There might be allotments to family, and there might be cash advance, cash payment. So this should be clearly stated in the payslip, made available to the seafarers. But normally it's not agreed upon in the SEA.
I can add something to this, because to carry a lot of cash on board a ship can actually be a security threat. So therefore it's also common that the ship owner establish some kind of limits on how much cash to carry on board, and then also on how much cash a person can request. But of course it should be a reasonable amount available.
Thank you. Maybe we've got time for one more. A question about the riding crew, or those who are sent on board for a particular project or maintenance for a shorter period of time. Are there any? Are they dealt with any differently in terms of the requirements for the SEA?
I think that it depends. Some companies have a riding crew. The only purpose of this position is to go from vessel to vessel to do repair work or maintenance. These are normally handled as seafarer, but people normally working on shore, staying on board for a shorter period, is not defined as a seafarer, if I understand the question correct. But it's the main purpose of the position is to to work on board and do regular work as maintenance and other work, then they normally is treated as a seafarer and shall have an employment agreement accordingly.
And if I may add, Guttorm, if in doubt whether a person or a category of person is a seafarer or not, we need to confer with the flag. That must, we are not in position to say yes or no to that. So it's the flag decision.
So I think with that, that brings us to the end of today's webinar. I'd like to thank all of our presenters and experts answering questions on this important topic. And I'm sure that your insights and the presentations helped our attendees prepared for this upcoming campaign. As we said at the very start of the webinar, we have been recording, and we will email you a link to access the webinar content as well as all the slides in the next few days. And there are many, many different DNV webinars available on our website as well. We've also talked a little bit about the PSC planner, which you can access via Veracity, and you can also, as a customer, ask questions via the date service as well. So once again, thank you so much to our presenters, to our experts. I'm sure this has been very helpful. Thank you to you all for attending, and take care. And we look forward to seeing you again at our next DNV webinar. Thank you so much.